All right, we're just about ready to get rolling. Just so you know, the speakers today are the Attorney General Matt Platkin, as well as the Director of the Division of Criminal Justice, Teresa Hilton, and Chief of the Division of Criminal Justice, Weldon Powell. The rest of the people behind us are our partners in our operation from today. We can get you names and titles later. The board over there is available on our website, as well as the press release. That's available on our website as well. If you need anything else, just let us know.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm proud to be joined by the Director of the Division of Criminal Justice, Teresa Hilton, by Chief Detectives of the Division of Criminal Justice, Weldon Powell, as well as a host of our law enforcement partners from local, state, police, from our prosecutors and detectives throughout the Division of Criminal Justice, to announce the arrests of 8 defendants, each charged with first-degree racketeering, human trafficking, and other crimes in connection with a trafficking ring that operated in multiple locations in Trenton and in Camden. The arrests follow a lengthy investigation in which the Division of Criminal Justice detectives uncovered a human trafficking ring that its members attempted to disguise as legitimate businesses. They even distributed business cards to would-be clients, and at first glance, the business cards appeared to be for innocuous businesses, whether it be a barbershop or a plumbing service. But the number listed was connecting to a messaging application, where instead of plumbing services or barbershop services, the callers would receive detailed information about available women, their locations, their ages, and even their countries of origin. So I want you to think about that for a moment. We're talking about human beings, women being treated as property, barely distinguishable from a car service or renting an automobile. Detectives first learned of the enterprise in May of 2024, and over the months that followed, an investigation uncovered links between numerous properties in both Trenton and Camden to the defendants that you will hear more about today. At the heart of the enterprise are the women who were victimized by both the operators of the human trafficking ring and those who handed over cash in exchange for commercial sex. And the victims could not simply walk away. As a cooperating witness told detectives, the women were not allowed to leave the houses where they were kept once they were there. In one instance, a woman who wanted to leave was told she could not because she owed one of the defendants $35,000 for bringing her into the United States. Several victims said they were lured to one of the locations after being told by the 2 women who ran the operation that they would be cleaning homes or working in a restaurant. They were then allegedly told that they had to perform multiple sex acts or they would not be allowed to leave. One woman was told that her family would be harmed if she did not comply. Rest assured, we're going to prosecute each of these defendants to the fullest extent of the law, and the charges, which Director Hilton will detail today, demonstrate that. We're also continuing to aid the victims in this case with the assistance of Covenant House, and I want to thank Roladil Chekolo, Senior Director of Services, who has provided, along with many folks in Covenant House, tremendous assistance as these victims who have suffered unimaginable trauma rebuild their lives one day and one moment at a time. They're survivors, and they're part, unfortunately, of a community of survivors and victims that number almost 28 million by estimates, adults and children who are victims of human trafficking both here and around the world. Eliminating sex trafficking and labor trafficking is no easy feat, but I want it to be known that in New Jersey, we're going to pursue anyone who engages in this type of conduct. We're going to stop you because we owe it to the women who suffered in this case and to every victim who has endured this unimaginable pain. This pain that they've endured at the hands of perpetrators who have prioritized them as profits or property rather than as human beings. As New Jersey's Attorney General, I promise you that New Jersey's law enforcement community, represented so ably up here today, and you can see the breadth of law enforcement representation it takes to bring a case like this. We're going to do everything we can to prevent human trafficking, to disrupt human trafficking rings, to prosecute those who engage in this conduct, and most importantly, to support survivors. It's also important to note that as of today, we're less than a year away from the first match of the FIFA 2026 World Cup, and we know that it's going to bring millions of people to our country, including to this region, to watch sporting events. It's going to be the most watched sporting event in the history of the world by some estimates, and we have sites both in Philadelphia and, of course, at MetLife. And among the spectators will undoubtedly be people who will attempt to engage in criminal human trafficking acts. So it's imperative that every New Jerseyan understand that human trafficking isn't something that happens elsewhere or to other people. As this case highlights, it happens right here in our cities and towns, and it's up to each of us to stop it. And I want to commend the state police who have been leading our work in preparation for the World Cup. And I would tell you, as we just led a national meeting on this, no state in the country is doing as much to prepare for the World Cup in respect to human trafficking than New Jersey. Human trafficking knows no age limit, knows no geographic boundary. It often appears as a consensual relationship or as a legitimate employment relationship, and anyone of any demographic or social status can be caught up in its web. In New Jersey, we've continued to build our efforts to attack the problem both from a law enforcement perspective and from prevention. In January of 2023, I launched the Division of Criminal Justice's Human Trafficking Unit, initially led by Director Hilton. And the vital work of this unit cannot be overstated. At its formation, I said the unit had the mandate to identify and dismantle human trafficking networks operating in New Jersey and to provide a measure of justice to those who have suffered at their hands. Since then, in the little over 2 years that's been in effect, the unit, along with its law enforcement partners, have been doing this difficult work. It's now staffed by 15 of the state's best litigators and investigators, working together to identify and dismantle often very complex, as in this case, trafficking networks across jurisdictional boundaries. In 2024, just to give you a sense of their impact, the Human Trafficking Unit charged more cases in 1 year, just from our office, than the entire state, including every prosecution agency in the state, did in the previous 4 years combined. We are also, at the same time, continuing to work, the Division of Criminal Justice continues to work closely with the 21 county prosecutors, the state police, and local and county police departments across the state to continue to bring cases like this one, while also working to increase public awareness, because we know that human trafficking is too often a crime that hides in plain sight, and the reality is too few people still believe it can happen in their community. So we know human traffickers rely on this ability to escape or to engage in this conduct in the middle of our communities. And so as part of that, we launched, and you can see over there an example, a public awareness campaign. We launched it in 2024, and I have to give First Assistant Lindsay Rotolo a shout out for driving this initiative. Our Stalls for Safety initiative. STALL stands for, we like acronyms here, Sanctuary from Trafficking, Awareness and Linkage to Law Enforcement and Services. These posters can be found in restrooms in public places such as Atlantic City, in New Jersey transit facilities, and they feature information in both English and Spanish on how victims and bystanders can report suspected human trafficking to relevant hotlines. There's a QR code where somebody can scan it with their phone, and we know that too often the only time somebody who's a victim of human trafficking is alone is when they're in the bathroom. And so that is why we have targeted restrooms across the state with these signs. We're also working to enhance services and supports available to victims as they seek to recover from their trauma and find some measures of peace. In September of 2022, it's hard to believe it's been that long actually, I created the Division of Violence Intervention and Victim Assistance, better known as VIVA, to bring together victim services and the department's violence intervention and prevention programming under one roof. First state in the country to have a state-level organization like VIVA. Its role is to develop an infrastructure that brings together public health and public safety, funding service providers and building partnerships between those providers and law enforcement agencies to help victims get the help they need, including legal services, victim compensation, and health and mental health services. At every step, I know I speak for the entire law enforcement community, and especially the folks up here today, we focus our work on the needs of survivors. I want to particularly thank the Division of Criminal Justice team who worked so hard on this case. Deputy Attorneys General Kathleen Dillon and Karen Bornstein, as well as Bureau Chief Laura Magnone, the talented detectives and investigators who worked on this case from the Major Threats Bureau and the Human Trafficking Unit, including Detectives Brianna Perea, Kara Murphy, and Neda Nikovich, under the supervision of Sergeant Mike Gonzalez, Lieutenant Dave Katona, and Deputy Chief Kevin Gannon. I want to thank again our numerous law enforcement partners who assisted in this investigation, which Chief Powell will discuss, and to every law enforcement officer who does all of the hard work across our state, all 42,000 of them, to keep us safe, and particularly those protecting vulnerable populations from these horrific acts. To the survivors, please know that we see you, we feel your pain, and we're going to keep doing everything we can, no matter how long it takes, to rid our state and ultimately, hopefully, this world of human trafficking. It's now my honor to turn the podium over to Director of the Division of Criminal Justice, Teresa Hillen.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here, and thank you, Attorney General Platkin. We are here to announce the takedown of a sophisticated human trafficking network that we allege operated for profit by exploiting vulnerable women through fraud, coercion, control, and fear. This investigation, led by detectives from the New Jersey Division of Criminal Justice and assisted by numerous agencies across our state, has resulted in 8 arrests and, most importantly, the recovery of 15 survivors. This human trafficking enterprise was highly structured with a clear hierarchy designed to maximize profit and maintain control over the victims. The investigation alleges that this enterprise was led by Vilma de Leon Bracamonte, known to those in the organization as Janet, as well as Maria Soledad Sheikh Chan. Bracamonte and Chan allegedly lured victims into their employ through false pretenses. It's alleged that they would promise the victims jobs cleaning homes or working in restaurants. Instead, they ended up in these homes where they were subject to systematic and organized sexual exploitation. Below the leaders of the enterprise were the couriers or inspectors, Santiago Miranda Gomez and Francisco Macario Suit. These individuals would allegedly pick up money twice a day, inspect the rooms in the home, and intimidate the victims and house managers. Lastly, the enterprise had 4 house managers: Wilmer Penargote Chimbiligua, Flavio Navarrete Reyes, Julio Delgado Belmeo, and Abel Aguilera Ronquillo. These individuals allegedly lived in the houses, provided the supplies necessary to keep them running, and took money from clients. They would also allegedly not let the victims leave. What these defendants were running was not a loose collection of criminal acts. It was an enterprise. It was coordinated, hierarchical, and profit-driven, and we charged it accordingly. All 8 individuals in this case face first-degree racketeering charges and multiple counts of first-degree human trafficking. Additionally, they face charges including second-degree money laundering, second-degree promoting organized street crime, and third-degree promoting prostitution. The leaders, Bracamonte and Chan, each face an additional second-degree charge of leader of an organized street crime, as well as an additional first-degree human trafficking charge for being the organizers of this scheme. For that charge, they face sentencing exposure of 20 years to life in prison, plus fines paid to the Human Trafficking Survivors Assistance Fund. A conviction of the first-degree racketeering charge has a sentencing exposure of 10 to 20 years in state prison, subject to the No Early Release Act, and fines up to $500,000. A conviction of one of the other first-degree human trafficking charges has sentencing exposure of 10 to 20 years in state prison plus fines. Behind the details of this criminal structure are real people. The women who were trapped inside of it, the survivors recovered during this investigation are not just nameless statistics. They are daughters, sisters, and mothers. They were lured with false promises, then exploited through threats, fear, and isolation, and some were even told they could not leave, and if they did, their families might be harmed. That is not freedom, it's modern-day slavery. I want to sincerely thank all of our law enforcement partners who assisted with this takedown. It is a true testament to how wonderful New Jersey law enforcement is that so many different agencies came together to help take this enterprise down, involving over 7 search warrants, 5 houses of suspected, 5 brothels and 2 houses, as well as vehicles. It could not have been done with just DCJ, even though DCJ led the investigation. It is quite a feat what was accomplished last week during this takedown, and it is a testament to all of the individuals standing behind me representing their agencies that assisted. And it is because of their relentless efforts that these women have now been removed from harm and are beginning the long process of recovery. But that process doesn't end with an arrest. It continues with compassion, with services, thanks to Covenant House, and with support. We're proud to be working with Covenant House, a victim services provider, which is providing these survivors with emergency care, housing, trauma counseling, and resources they need to begin rebuilding their lives. Their work reminds us that justice isn't just about holding offenders accountable, it's also about helping survivors heal. This takedown also sends a clear message. If you engage in human trafficking in New Jersey, if you profit from the abuse of others, we will find you, we will expose you, and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. And this investigation indicates that it had operated for some time. So it's possible that there are additional survivors out there, and we ask for anyone with information on this enterprise or any survivor who has been affected by this to come forward and call the New Jersey Human Trafficking Hotline, which is 855-NJHT. And lastly, to the survivors, you were never invisible to us. You matter, and this system, this justice system, is working for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. It's now my privilege to welcome Chief of Detectives of the Division of Criminal Justice, Walden Powell.
Thank you, General Platkin, and thank you for prioritizing human trafficking and providing us with the resources to make a difference. I would also like to thank Director Hilton for her guidance and passion for ending human trafficking. It is in large part why we're here today. I also want to take this opportunity to highlight the tremendous work of the detectives of the Division of Criminal Justice and to underscore the importance of teamwork. The takedown announced by General Platkin today is the result of months of relentless investigative work. It is also a clear example of what can be accomplished when law enforcement works together with a shared mission to protect vulnerable members of our society. This investigation began a little bit over a year ago with a tip. What followed was painstaking investigation that uncovered a criminal enterprise allegedly led by the target, Bracamonte, aka Janet. She used a network of brothels hidden under the false front of barbershops and other businesses to trap and exploit women for her own personal financial gain. Our detectives worked day and night tracking the movements of the network, analyzing digital data, and following every lead to uncover the truth. Thanks to their dedication, this human trafficking network was interrupted and taken down. This investigation and takedown would also have not been possible without the collaboration of our partners. Thank you to the New Jersey State Police, Mercer County Prosecutor's Office, Mercer County Sheriff's Office, Morris County Prosecutor's Office, Hamilton Township Police Department, Hudson County Prosecutor's Office, Perth Amboy Police Department, Camden County Prosecutor's Office, and the Camden County Sheriff's Office. We'd also like to recognize the work of Covenant House. Your support for the survivors has been critical in helping the victims to begin the difficult road of recovery. We are deeply proud of the work done by every detective, police officer, prosecutor, and service provider. Thank you once again for your hard work and dedication.
Thank you, Chief. You know, I said this, but I think it's worth underscoring. These cases, all cases, but particularly these cases, ultimately are about people. They're about the victims, the survivors, but they're also brought by people. And, you know, when we created the Human Trafficking Unit, yes, we put it in place and gave them a mandate, but people had to do this work. And I really want to thank Teresa, Director Hilton, Chief Powell, all of the folks in the unit, and all of our partners. These cases are hard. They're hard to investigate. They're hard to prosecute. They're hard to build trust with a very vulnerable population. They're hard to get folks to give information. They're hard to make people believe that we actually care enough to prosecute a case. And ultimately, they're hard on the people who bring them because there's a lot of trauma involved. And I just have such tremendous respect and admiration for everybody who does this work. And I'm really proud of the fact that the state has shown. The reason why the Division of Criminal Justice was created in 1970 was to prosecute the most complex criminal organizations operating in New Jersey. That's true for organized crime, it's true for public corruption, and it's absolutely true for folks who would profit off people, and as the director said, in a form of modern-day slavery. And these folks behind me and the folks out here and throughout this department and in offices across the state that are doing this work are living up to that mission and are serving the public, and I think are doing some of the finest investigative and prosecutorial work anywhere in the country. With that, I'm happy to open it up to any questions. So it was a tip, as the chief said. I'll let the director, if she has additional information on that, and I will defer to her on ages and origin, if we can share anything.
So with respect to the victims, the ages ranged between 21 and 58. And in terms of country of origin, all South and Central American, it was not one it was not one country. So it wasn't, I wouldn't call it a front. It was what it was. There were business cards with false businesses on the business card that said it was either a barbershop or a, what was the other one? I just said it and I can't remember. Plumbing, that's right, thank you. So it was on the business cards, but the locations, the houses themselves, never presented themselves to be anything other, anything unless you knew what it was and knew it was operating as a brothel.
Any other questions? Well, let me again thank all of our law enforcement partners, and thank you for being here today. The Human Trafficking Unit and the entire Division of Criminal Justice, our state police, and I want to thank all of you for being here, and to the victims and survivors of this case and of all the human trafficking work we've done. We are doing this work because of you, and please, if anyone has information about this case or any other case, I hope we've shown today and in the many other cases we brought, we act on every piece of information we get, and we won't stop until we can hold perpetrators accountable. Thank you all.